The Role of Policy and Legislation, a conversation on shaping education. Hello, I would like to begin a conversation about the impact of policy and legislation on education reform. It should be obvious that no matter how passionate educators and communities are about improving learning, real change cannot happen without the support of strong policies and legal frameworks. Education is not just about classrooms and curriculums. It is deeply influenced by government decisions that determine funding, accessibility, curriculum standards, and even the professional lives of teachers. But are these policies truly serving the needs of students and educators, or are they creating more barriers? Doesn't it follow that when policymakers are disconnected from the realities of classrooms, reforms become ineffective? Too often, decisions about education are made in government offices rather than in schools. Policies are drafted without consulting the very people who experience the challenges firsthand: teachers, students, and parents. Can you imagine how much more effective education reform would be if lawmakers actively engaged with educators and communities before drafting policies? What if schools were given the flexibility to shape their own learning environments rather than being forced into rigid, top-down mandates? I have observed that while some policies aim to improve education, many are driven by political interests rather than the genuine needs of students. Education often becomes a tool for political agendas, with reforms being reversed or altered every time a new administration comes into power. It should be obvious that lasting change requires long-term vision, not short-term political cycles. Wouldn't it be more beneficial if education policies were designed with stability and sustainability in mind, ensuring that reforms have the time and resources to create real impact? Funding is another critical issue. Education policies determine how resources are allocated, yet many schools struggle with inadequate budgets, outdated materials, and overburdened teachers. Doesn't it follow that if we truly value education, it should be treated as an investment rather than an expense? Can you imagine the transformation if every school had access to modern technology, well-trained educators, and sufficient support systems? What if policies prioritized equitable funding, ensuring that all students, regardless of socioeconomic background, had access to quality education? It should be obvious that legislation plays a major role in shaping the teaching profession. Teacher training, certification requirements, salary structures, and professional development opportunities are all determined by policy. But are these policies actually empowering teachers, or are they adding unnecessary pressure? Wouldn't it be more effective if policies focused on supporting educators, providing them with mentorship, growth opportunities, and autonomy in their teaching methods, rather than burdening them with excessive administrative tasks and rigid evaluation systems? Doesn't it follow that collaboration between policymakers, educators, and communities is the key to meaningful reform? Education is not a one-size-fits-all system, and the best policies are those that consider diverse perspectives. Can you imagine the impact if schools had more say in the policies that affect them? What if students themselves were given a voice in shaping the future of education? Wouldn't it be incredible if decision-making was a collective effort rather than something dictated by those far removed from the realities of learning? The future of education depends on the policies we create today. It is time now for governments to see education as more than just a system to be regulated. It is the foundation of a thriving society. It should be obvious that the best policies are those that empower rather than control, that innovate rather than restrict. Can you imagine a world where education policies truly serve the needs of every student, educator, and community? The possibilities are endless if we approach reform with vision, collaboration, and a commitment to real progress.